Hi, I'm Rick, and I'm here with my Mini 2 and this monitor. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to get a live video stream from your drone as it flies onto a screen, such as this monitor or a laptop. And I'm going to show you how to do it in a way that doesn't require internet, because sometimes you don't have internet when you're flying. You may also be wondering, where am I going to plug in this monitor if I'm out in the field? And I'll talk about that a little bit in the demonstration. You could do this with a USB to HDMI cable, but I want to show you how to do it completely wirelessly because it's kind of a dragging a cable around. Why would you want to do this? Well, sometimes you're out with friends and you're flying, and it's be nice if they don't have to look over your shoulder in the bright sun at a little screen. If they could look at a big screen set up in the shade somewhere and be able to enjoy the view. Now, the quality isn't going to be as good as the quality you get from recordings on your SD card, but it's still pretty decent and it's a lot of fun to do. So this is actually the first of two videos. So this one is sort of like a classroom where I talk about the options you have. The second video is more like a lab where you will actually see demonstrations of several of the different mirroring scenarios, as well as a streaming scenario. But this video should be enough to get you going unless you're going to do the streaming. It's not absolutely necessary to watch both of them, but I think it can be helpful to see the demonstrations as well. So there are really two approaches, and I sort of alluded to them, of getting your video onto a screen. The first is mirroring, and in mirroring you're going to basically mirror what you're seeing on your controller display onto a screen. The second is streaming. So the DJI Fly app, and I think Litchi too, can basically stream video right from the app to wherever. I think people generally use it to stream live drone video to YouTube or Facebook or something, but you can do it locally as well, as I'll show you. So here is an example of mirroring, and here is one of streaming. If you're only interested in streaming, you can actually skip the rest of this video and jump to the second video. There's a demonstration of streaming towards the end of that. But you probably will find that mirroring is a better way to go. It's easier to set up generally and also more robust. So in that case, you should keep watching. And the problem with mirroring is that there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. So I didn't actually set out to make a video. I set out to get the screen of my Moto G7 mirrored onto a display. And I thought it would be easy, and it wasn't. I tried a Chromecast, which normally works, but it doesn't work without internet. Tried a couple of other dongles. They didn't work either. I tried a number of different apps. Most of them didn't work without internet. I did finally find a couple that worked. So I did a lot of experiments, and along the way I learned a lot of things, and this video is to share those with you in the hope that you can avoid a lot of the headaches that I ran into. The difficulty with mirroring is really twofold, and actually one of these applies to streaming as well. The problem with mirroring is that all phones do not mirror in the same way. So all phones can't mirror to all types of displays. That's the first problem. The second problem is, as I've said before, a lot of mirroring solutions require that you have internet, and you might not. Maybe the best way to explain the issues is by way of example. Here are three devices. On the left is a Samsung Tab A, an Android. We can find the mirroring button. It's called Smart View, and click that, and it will search for devices that it can mirror to. We'll see that it can mirror to two devices. One is called Desktop, it's a Windows 10 laptop, and the other is called Family Room, it's a Roku Smart TV. Now if we go to the iPad and click its mirroring button, it only shows one thing, the Family Room Roku TV, which was shown over there. And if we go over to the Moto G7, another Android, it shows that it can mirror to this thing called Attic TV, which is a Chromecast device. So what's going on here? The desktop, the Windows PC, can only be seen by the Samsung tablet. The Chromecast can only be seen by the Moto G7. And the Family Room, the Roku, can be seen by both the Samsung and the iPad. The reason for this is that these three devices all use different protocols for mirroring. A mirroring protocol is a language between the device you're mirroring from and the device you're mirroring to. And for it to work, both devices have to speak the same language. The Samsung uses a mirroring protocol called Miracast. The iPad uses Apple's Airplay protocol, and the Moto G7 uses Google's Cast protocol. Now you may wonder why the family room shows up on two devices, and that's because the Roku Smart TV supports both Miracast and Airplay. Now this gets even more complicated when you take it with the internet. If I were to click on one of the display devices in this example, that is the desktop or the family room Roku or the Chromecast, it's called Attic TV, then the screen would be mirrored to that display as you would expect. But if I were to first disable the internet and try it, the iPad to Roku wouldn't work, and neither would the Moto G7 to the Chromecast. I'm not going to demonstrate this here, but you can try it for yourself and see. So I said that I'd share the results of my experiments, and here they are. This table shows all of the mirroring scenarios that I've tried, and I hope that at least one of them will work for you. There are, however, a few big caveats about this table that I'll talk about at the end of this discussion. So there's a row in the table for each protocol, and the mirror from and mirror to columns show the devices that can work together using that protocol, even in the absence of an internet connection. Now in most cases, you'll still need a local network connection between the devices, which is indicated by a yes in the network required column. So you'll usually need something to act as a router. Now, the Miracast protocol is the one exception. Miracast uses something called Wi-Fi Direct that doesn't require you to be connected to a Wi-Fi network, which makes it a little easier to work with. Now, the way to use this table is to look down the column called Mirror From Controller Device and find rows that match your controller device. Then look to the Mirror To column to see what your options are for devices to mirror to. So let's walk through this table. First, if you have a Samsung device or one of a few other Androids, you can mirror to displays that support the Miracast protocol. Now Windows supports Miracast natively, so it's easy to mirror to a Windows laptop. There are also a number of dongles that support Miracast, as well as many smart TVs such as the Roku TV that I showed earlier. The dongles have an HDMI output which lets you plug them into any monitor, TV, or even goggles that supports HDMI. And I also got this working on a Fire Stick, but a funny thing about the Fire Stick is that it had to be connected to some Wi-Fi network for it to work. There didn't have to be anything else on the network, but it had to be connected to something, which is kind of weird. Now, if you have a monitor and you don't have a laptop, then you probably want to go with the dongle approach. On the other hand, if you have a laptop and you don't have a monitor, or maybe you don't want to lug around a big monitor and figure out where to power it, then you should go with the laptop approach. And of course, if you go with a laptop, you can also have the option of plugging a monitor into the laptop. Let's look at the next row in the table. This is if you have an iPhone or an iPad. And there are a number of dongles that support Airplay that will work with your iPhone or iPad. The one I tried, which is called Anycast, created a simple Wi-Fi network to help you in connecting the two devices, so that made it pretty easy. And I've also read that you can mirror to some recent Apple iOS devices and computers, but I haven't tried it, and I don't know if it works without internet. But if you try that and it works, please note below. You also have the option of mirroring to an app called Reflector. I actually used Reflector 4. And Reflector supports Airplay along with Chromecast. But Reflector does run on a Mac or a Windows laptop. If you have an Android that doesn't support Miracast, such as my Moto G7, then it should at least support the Google Cast protocol. Ideally, you'd want to be able to cast to a Chromecast device, and I've read that a Chromecast should be able to mirror without internet, but I tried really hard to mirror to my Chromecast device, and I couldn't make it work. So it's not shown as an option here. But if you've been able to make that work, please make a note in the comments below, because I would love to know how to do that. One way you can mirror these Android devices that use the Google Cast protocol is to mirror to the Reflector app running on either Windows or Mac. The next row shows HTTP. So HTTP isn't specifically a mirroring protocol, but it can be used for mirroring. And the app is a web server, basically, that runs on your phone and serves up a display so that it can be viewed on a computer. Now, I tried an Android app that does this, and I also tried an iOS app that does this, and they're both nice and simple, but the video quality isn't that great. And the last row corresponds to proprietary protocols. So for a proprietary protocol to work, the app needs to be running on both the device you're mirroring from and the device you're mirroring to, because it's using its own protocol. So the to device and the from device need to know how to talk to each other. So a really nice example of this is the Power Mirror app, which runs on Android, on iOS, on Windows, and on Mac OS. So you can pretty much mirror from anything to anything with this app, anything except the dongle. So if you don't have a monitor or a laptop, you can even mirror to an iPad or mirror to an Android tablet with this. That's really pretty nice. So I think this table should be really helpful to anybody trying to do mirroring without the internet. But there are three big caveats. So first, I'm sure there are other scenarios that could work, maybe apps I haven't tried. But I can tell you, I tried a lot of things that did not work. So if you come across other ways to mirror without the internet, please make a note below. I'd love to hear about them. The second thing is that this table is a huge generalization because I experimented with just a few devices. And using these few devices, I've made pretty broad generalizations that I think are mostly right, but they might sometimes be wrong. So, I mean, there are lots and lots of devices out there. For every device, there are multiple hardware and software versions. So there are plenty of opportunities for it to be not quite correct, but I think it will mostly be right. And the third caveat is that the scenarios in this table all work when you have no internet whatsoever. And I think there are other scenarios that can work if you have just a little bit of internet. They might work in a situation where your internet connection is weak, or maybe you're worried about using up a lot of data on your cell phone plan or something. But I think Miracast, Airplay, and Googlecast all send the mirroring data through the local network. And the reason they sometimes don't work without internet is maybe because internet's used to initialize the connection or something like that. Not 100% sure about that, but you should give it a shot and see if you need to use a Chromecast or something. So I hope in this table you found a few options to try for mirroring whatever devices you might have. You should try all the ones that I say work because you'll find that you like some better than others. They can differ in a few ways, and you should be the judge of which options are the best. For example, they can differ in how hard they are to set up. They can differ in how robust they are. They can differ in video quality. And also some of them cost something. So a dongle is going to cost you 20 or 30 bucks. I think the reflector app probably costs about 20 bucks. A Power Mirror, which I really like, the paid version seems quite expensive to me. It's like a monthly subscription, but the free version is actually pretty decent, and it times out after 10 minutes and you have to reconnect. That's the main pain with that. So you need to keep in mind that there can be a cost. So that's pretty much it for this video. I'm sure that there will be updates to this table in the future, so I'll put a link to the table below where you can see any updates. And finally, you might want to check out the accompanying video, which will demonstrate these scenarios. Thanks for watching, and I hope this was helpful. I'd love to hear your comments. Bye-bye.